It was a gray morning in March 2024 in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. The cloudy sky hovered over the dusty streets of the Sanan neighborhood, a peripheral area of the city. Between narrow alleys and worn brick walls, Madame Ada, a 65-year-old woman, sat on the ground leaning against a red brick wall. Her white t-shirt was torn with holes revealing wrinkled skin, and her gray hair fell in a disheveled strand. In her hands she held an old dirty notebook with yellowed pages and a cover stained by time. However, her eyes shone with a nostalgia that contrasted sharply with her dire condition. A few yards away, a military jeep passed slowly as part of a routine patrol by Ibrahim Traore, the interim president of Burkina Faso. He insisted on seeing the city with his own eyes, even against security advice. Looking out the window, Traore saw the silhouette leaning against the wall. Something in her face made him frown. "Stop here," he ordered the driver, Captain Sawadogo, his deep voice breaking the silence of the vehicle. Traore got out of the jeep, his impeccable olive green uniform pristine, and walked toward the woman with soldiers keeping their distance. As he approached, he noticed a notebook in her hands and stopped his heart racing. "Madame Ada," he asked barely above a whisper, recognizing the aged face of a teacher who had taught him how to read and write decades ago. She looked up confused, then a flash of recognition crossed her face. Ibrahim Traore," she said in a hoarse but emotional voice. She tried to get up, but her legs gave way, and he quickly leaned over to help her support herself against the wall. "Yes, it's me," he confirmed, his eyes fixed on her. "What are you doing here like this?" Ada clutched the notebook tighter, her fingers trembling. "I've kept it all these years," she said, opening the notebook to reveal childish notes. The name Ibrahim Traore was written in crooked letters. "It was yours since you were 8 years old. I always knew you would be great." A tear fell from her face, and Traore felt his chest tighten as the past came rushing back like a wave. The gray morning of March 2024 weighed heavily on Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, as Ibrahim Traore stayed crouched in front of Madame Ada, his former teacher, in the dirty street of the Sanan neighborhood. The old notebook in her hands trembled, the yellowed pages recalling memories of the dirt floor classroom literacy lessons, and Ada's calm voice teaching him to write his name. Traore gently picked up the notebook, his fingers brushing against the crooked letters he had written when he was 8 years old. "Did you keep it all this time?" he asked, his eyes misty. Ada nodded, a slight smile appearing on her wrinkled face. "You were special, Ibrahim. I always knew you would go far. When I saw you on TV as president, I cried with pride." She lowered her eyes, embarrassed. "But look at me now. I have nothing left." Her voice faded, and she wiped away a tear with the torn sleeve of her t-shirt. Traore remained silent, the weight of her words hitting him like a blow. He looked around at the dirty alley, the scattered debris, the misery that engulfed his former teacher. "What happened, madam?" he asked, his voice softer. "You gave me so much. How did you end up here?" Ada took a deep breath, her gaze distant. "After my retirement, my husband passed away. My children went to Europe, but I never heard from them again. I lost my house because of my debts, and now I've been living on the street for 3 years." She clutched the notebook against her chest. "This is all that's left from a time when I had a purpose." Traore felt a lump in his throat, a mix of guilt and gratitude. He stood up, his fist clenched, and turned towards Sawadogo, who was watching from a few yards away. "Bring her food and water," he ordered, his voice firm but trembling with emotion. The captain nodded and ran to the jeep while Traore stepped down. "You won't stay here, Madame Ada," he said firmly. "Not after what you did for me." She looked at him, confused. "I don't want charity," she murmured, pride still alive in her voice. He shook his head. "This isn't charity, it's what I owe you." He held her hand, his eyes shining. "Come with me." The gray morning of March 2024 began to open up in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, as timid rays of sunlight pierced through the clouds. In the alley of the Sanan neighborhood, Ibrahim Traore helped Madame Ada stand up, the old notebook still in her hands. Sawadogo returned from the jeep with a bottle of water and a bag of bread, handing them to the woman, who hesitated before accepting. "Thank you," she murmured slowly, drinking, her eyes still fixed on Traore, incredulous at his presence. "You're coming with me," Traore repeated, his voice firm but gentle. He gestured to Sawadogo. "Help her into the jeep." Ada protested weakly. Ibrahim, I can't look at me. I'm filthy. I have nothing. He stopped her, gently placing his hand on her shoulder. You have more than you think, madam. You gave me a future, now it's my turn. Sawadogo supported her as she climbed into the jeep, while Traore took the notebook from her hands and tucked it into his uniform pocket. That's all I can give you for now, he said with a faint smile. But you'll have a place to keep it again. Ada climbed into the vehicle, her fragile body trembling, but her eyes shone with hope she hadn't felt in years. In the jeep, Traore sat beside her, the scent of dust and sweat mixing with the fragrance of the past that the notebook evoked. Let's go to the base first, he said to Sawadogo, who was driving. I want her to have hot food, clean clothes, and to see a doctor. The captain nodded but asked gently, And then, Mr. President? Traore looked out the window as the city passed by. After she'll have a home and a purpose, again. He listened, tears silently falling. Why are you doing this, Ibrahim? She asked, her voice hoarse. He turned to her, his eyes intense. Because you taught me how to read, how to write, how to dream. Without you, I wouldn't know who I am. Burkina Faso owes you as much as it owes me. He held her hand tightly. You will never sleep on the street again. The jeep continued, leaving the alley behind while neighbors began whispering. The president took the old woman with a notebook, said a boy running to tell others. The story of Ada and Traore began to spread a whisper of hope throughout the city. The sun started warming Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, that March morning of 2024 when Ibrahim Traore's jeep entered the military base on the outskirts of the city. Madame Ada, sitting next to the president, held a bottle of water with trembling hands, still stunned by this sudden change. Traore stepped out first, opening the door for her. Come, madam, he said gently, his teeth carefully showing. Sawadogo followed them, carrying orders to organize what he had requested at the base. Soldiers stopped to look surprised to see the president with an elderly woman in rags. Traore ignored them, leading Ada into a small cafeteria. Sit here, he said, pulling out a chair. He called an officer. Bring hot food, rice, sauce, whatever you have, and clean clothes for her. The officer nodded and rushed to carry out the orders. Ada sat down, her eyes lowered, embarrassed. Ibrahim, I don't deserve this, she murmured weakly. I was your teacher, but now I'm nothing. Traore bent down, his eyes fixed on her. You're not nothing. You're the woman who gave me wings, and now you'll fly again. He took the notebook out of his pocket and placed it on the table. Look at what you kept. It made me who I am. A cook brought out a steaming plate of rice with peanut sauce, and Ada ate slowly, the taste bringing tears to her eyes. It was her first warm meal in months. Traore watched, his chest tight. A military doctor arrived to examine her. She is malnourished, Mr. President, said the doctor after checking her signs. But with rest and food, she'll recover. Traore nodded with satisfaction. I want her to stay here today. Give her a room, a bath, everything she needs. He turned to Ada, who had finished eating. Rest, madam. Tomorrow we start again. She looked at him, tears freely falling. Thank you, Ibrahim. I never thought I'd see you like this, a leader with a heart. He smiled rarely. You taught me to have a heart. He stood, leaving her with the doctor, but he took the notebook with him, a reminder of what he still had to do for her. The afternoon of March 2024 unfolded in Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso. The sun now shone brightly on the military base, where Madame Ada rested after a warm shower and clean clothes, a simple blue tunic provided by the soldiers. She slept in a small room, her first peaceful sleep in years. Ibrahim Traore, in the control room, held the old notebook of his childhood, the yellow pages open on the table. He read his own crooked letters, the memories of the dirt floor classroom returning like a movie. Ada's lessons, her patience, the way she encouraged him to dream big. Sawadogo entered, bringing a report. She's fine, Mr. President, he said. The doctor said she needs care, but she'll recover. Traore nodded, his eyes still on the notebook. Good, but it's not enough. She gave me everything now. I will give her life. He closed the notebook with determination. I want a house for her, Sawadogo, simple but dignified, in a safe neighborhood, and a job, something that will make her feel useful again. Sawadogo hesitated. A job? She's weak, Mr. President. Traore looked at him firmly. She's a teacher. She can teach again. Even if it's just a few kids, it will give her a purpose. He tapped his fingers on the table. And I want this to happen quickly. The house will be ready in a week. Speak to the local council. Let them find her a space to teach. The captain nodded, taking note of the orders. And the costs? He asked cautiously. Traore shook his head. I'll pay out of my own pocket if needed. This isn't politics, it's personal. He put the notebook in his uniform pocket, determined, I'll go see her now. I want her to know what's coming. In Ada's room, she woke up, her eyes clearer after her rest. Traore entered, sitting next to her. How do you feel, madam? He asked gently. She smiled weakly. Like I'm dreaming, Ibrahim. He took her hand. It's not a dream, you have a home, and you'll teach again, but better. Ada's eyes widened, tears returning. Teach, can I still? Traore nodded. Yes, and I'll be there to help you start. The end of the afternoon in March 2024 brought a light breeze to Ouagadougou, Burkina Faso, as Ibrahim Traore accompanied Madame Ada to a modest neighborhood a few kilometers from the military base. A week had passed since their reunion, and the house Traore had ordered was ready, a simple brick building with a tin roof, a living room, a bedroom, and a small garden. Ada, now in new clothes and with a healthier face after days of care, walked by his side, leaning on an arm offered by Sawadogo. Her eyes shone with disbelief when she saw the house. This is yours, madam, said Traore, handing her the key. Here you will live with dignity. Ada took the key with trembling hands and entered her bare rooms, touching the clean floor. Ibrahim, I have no words, she murmured, tears flowing as she looked at the basic furniture. A bed, a table, chairs in the corner. Traore placed the old notebook on the table. Now you have a place to keep it, he said with a smile. But the plan didn't stop there. Traore took her to a nearby community school where the local council, at his request, had arranged a small classroom. 10 children aged 6 to 8 were sitting at makeshift desks with new notebooks donated by the base. Madame Ada will teach you again, he announced, his voice firm. It starts with them, and over time more will come. Ada stood motionless, her heart pounding. Teach again, she asked, her voice broken. She looked at the children, who stared at her with curiosity, and an old strength returned. She picked up a piece of chalk, her hands trembling, and wrote ABC on the board. The children repeated in unison, and she smiled, tears flowing freely. Thank you, Ibrahim, she said, turning to him. You've given me my life back. Traore, standing at the door, felt his eyes water. No, madam, you gave me mine a long time ago. This is just the beginning. He looked at the children, his voice firm. Study hard, okay? One day you'll change Burkina Faso, just like she changed me. The children nodded, their eyes shining, while Ada wiped away a tear. Traore left his childhood notebook still in his pocket, a reminder of what the past can teach. He knew the work was only beginning for Ada, for the children, and for the country. By the end of March 2024, a new energy had arrived in the neighborhood, where Madame Ada now lived and taught. Her small brick house had become a landmark, and the small community school where she taught began to attract more children. The number grew from 10 to 15, all eager to learn from the teacher of the president. Ada, in simple but clean clothes, wrote on the board with renewed firmness. The old notebook of Ibrahim Traore, kept on a shelf, was a symbol of his journey. Traore at the military base received reports from Sawadogo. The school is in session, Mr. President, said the captain, handing over photos of the children with Ada. She's doing well. The doctor said her health is improving daily. Traore looked at the photos, a rare smile forming. Good. I want this to grow: more teachers, more classrooms. Let's make this an example for the country. News of Traore's gesture spread throughout Ouagadougou. At the central market, vendors commented, he found his teacher in the street and gave her a home, and now she's teaching again. A woman carrying a basket nodded. Traore has a heart. The story was broadcast on local radio, inspiring others to help their community. A ripple of hope began spreading. Traore visited Ada again, entering the classroom as she was teaching children to read. They recognized him and cheered, President, in unison, and he waved back. Ada stopped smiling and turned to him with gratitude. Ibrahim, look at what you've done, she said, pointing to the students. You've given me a purpose again. He walked closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. You gave me mine, madam, many years ago. This is just the beginning. He looked at the children, his voice firm. Study hard, okay? One day you'll change Burkina Faso, just like she changed me. The children nodded, their eyes shining, while Ada wiped away a tear. Traore left his childhood notebook still in his pocket, reminding him of what the past can teach. He knew that the work had only just begun for Ada, for the children, for the country, valuable lesson. This story powerfully illustrates the transformative impact of gratitude and the importance of remembering those who helped us along the way. It shows that even in positions of great power, humility and compassion can create lasting change. It reminds us that every individual has value and that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can ripple outwards and inspire hope in entire communities. Please leave your comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories. Rate this story on a scale of 1 to 10.